Joining us now is Peter Kaldor from the City Bible Forum. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you, Keith.
So what is the City Bible Forum?
The City Bible Forum is an organisation that seeks to serve workers who commute to the business districts of Australia. And we provide lots of opportunities for people to engage with life's bigger questions, in particular, really the God question.
So is that its main purpose for existence?
It is. We, on the one hand, support people who come from a Christian faith and who seek to live out their Christian faith in the workplace with all the pressures and challenges they face. And on the other hand, we want to create safe environments and places where people can engage with spiritual discussions and deal with the pressures of life in the workplace.
Because it is possible to belong to a local church and feel that nobody's really answering the questions that I've got in the workplace, which are to do with decisions and how you tackle it, the stresses and the impact upon people.
Absolutely. From the perspective of those who would be going to church, often they do feel quite lonely and not understood. And so I think they appreciate the opportunity to meet with others in the same profession, or perhaps in other professions, and to think through questions like, how do I deal with temptations at work, and how do I deal with pressures or where I'm asked perhaps not to be ethical or not to tell the truth? How do I deal with those questions in the workplace?
And do you have examples in your own mind of people who would not have found it easy to talk about the God questions, who somehow through a friend are drawn into these groups and start to talk about it?
Many examples, wonderful examples. At the moment, I'd be sort of having those conversations with a good 15 or 20 men in the city, professionals sort of in their 30s to 50s, who, you know, have had a lot of experiences in life, and it's time now where they're re-evaluating and thinking, well, it's probably about time that I did think about God. And so one of the great things I enjoy doing is just looking at the text of one of the Gospels. We look a lot at John's Gospel, and out of that comes all sorts of questions where they're wondering, what is the purpose of life? Where is it heading?
Mm-hmm. So how are you involved in all of this? You know, I mean,
how did I get involved?
Yes.
Well, I didn't grow up with it. I, in fact, didn't grow up with any kind of religion as such. I'm sort of half from a Jewish background, half from a Christian background. And it was really only when I was 22 that I started to seriously engage and ask questions myself and read the text. And it certainly wasn't an overnight experience. For me, it was a case of maybe 18 months inquiring and asking my questions before I came to the view that, yes, I think that Christ is the answer for me.
And you were involved in business yourself, I understand.
Yes, I went into merchant banking. Here in Australia, I was involved with what they call project finance. And then in Switzerland, I worked in acquisition finance, where I help one company buy another company.
And you married your wife in Switzerland?
I did, indeed, Bettina.
So you came back to Australia, and then you felt this was something God was calling you to?
Well, yes, it was kind of a slow decision process, you could say. Maybe that's my nature. At work, I found that I was having all sorts of conversations, and people wanted to sound me out about matters of faith and life. And it came to the point where I really needed to decide, do I stay in my career, which I really enjoyed and loved, or do I embark in this direction? So I came back and did a theology degree, and then I teamed up with my good friend Craig, and for the last 17 years I've been doing this around Australia.
So what really, very often as an evangelist, you know a pattern of how you present the gospel and the good news. What is the most, the question you most hear, without identifying it to anybody, but the question, the issue that is most knocking around in people's minds in your groups when they come from outside the church?
I think the basic question is, I think that I'm going to be good enough to impress God. So I create a resume. I'm told that, you know, by my own family that I'm a nice guy. I do lots of nice things for charity. I might run in a marathon and make donations to good causes. And so we start to feel that we can self-justify. And I think it's to break down that understanding and to really, I guess, learn humility before God. I think that's one of the key challenges, which isn't easy for self-made business people, whether men or women.
And perhaps to loosen it a bit from the traditional shackles of some of the language that we use, so that it really relates to people's experience.
Absolutely. And one thing I think you'd be aware, Keith, is that people in business aren't immune to life's problems. So it's not as if because they're wealthy or have status that they're immune to issues like substance abuse or children with problems of anxiety or parents with dementia. So when these problems hit, they raise basic questions, the same questions which really everyone asks. And then there's wonderful opportunities to think, well, how does God make a difference when life really hurts?
This happens in each capital city in Australia?
It does, yes. So we're really all down the eastern seaboard in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth. We're just starting up in Canberra, and God willing, next January we'll be starting up in Hobart.
And people can go on a website, can they, to find out where and how?
Absolutely, citybibleforum.org, find out all the information.
And for those who don't share the Christian faith, are the groups very heavily churchy? Or try to describe a meeting for me.
Yeah, okay. Well, I can describe this morning's meeting. So we have a man presenting about his own life, and the topic really was, how much can we really control in life? And in front of him were 30 business people, primarily in the finance industry. So they're used to taking control. And through illustrating it through authors like Malcolm Gladwell and his own experience and a few verses in the Bible, he showed how really there's very little that we can really control in life. Mm-hmm. And one of the big lessons in the Bible is that we really should preface things by saying, if it's the Lord's will, we will carry on business and go to this city or that.
Peter, thank you for taking time to share with us something of the importance of and we wish you well as you carry on, and may God bless you in that important ministry.
Thank you, Keith.